Great to be here with you guys today. Nobody cares. Go home. It just dawned on me this morning, folks. You think if the NBA was 2 months away from starting their season, the NBA that's in bed with Disney, ABC, ESPN, that they wouldn't tell their networks to start talking about their league to get the word out to the public of what's going on? You don't think they'd start pushing propaganda because they have so much money to lose? If there's
The WNBA season is less than 2 months away, and yet it's quiet. Not normal quiet, not off-season quiet, the kind of silence that makes you start asking questions. Turn on ESPN, flip over to ABC, scroll through Disney's major sports programming. You won't hear heated debates about the upcoming CBA negotiations. You won't see segments breaking down what's at stake. Stephen A. Smith hasn't touched it. Colin Cowherd hasn't gone near it. It's like the conversation doesn't exist. And that's the alarming part. This isn't a minor scheduling issue or a slow news cycle. The league is approaching critical collective bargaining negotiations, the kind that can reshape salaries, revenue sharing, and the entire economic future of the sport. Yet the biggest sports platforms in the country are barely acknowledging it. Oz, even after the Caitlin Clark explosion, even after record attendance, even after historic ratings, the same networks that benefit from broadcasting professional leagues aren't rallying public support, aren't building urgency, aren't framing this as a pivotal moment for the WNBA. That absence speaks volumes. Because when media giants don't amplify a story this important, it suggests something uncomfortable, a lack of confidence in the product's long-term leverage. Clark's arrival injected life, revenue, and global attention into the league. But if the networks that profit from that surge aren't treating the upcoming negotiations as must-watch drama, it raises a serious question. Do they believe the league holds enough power to demand more? Or are they preparing for turbulence? Right now, it feels like the momentum has stalled. And the energy that once felt unstoppable suddenly feels fragile. The air is leaking out of the balloon, and the clock is ticking.
Word out to the public of what's going on? You don't think they'd start pushing propaganda because they have so much money to lose if there's no season? If there's no NBA season, ESPN loses drastically. ABC, drastically. Disney, drastically. NBC, big money they lose. But why aren't they doing that with the WNBA? Why aren't they so worried and concerned that propaganda needs to be put out there to save the WNBA season? To put some pressure out there publicly? The only pressure we see are from content creators. You know, we got...
Then came a blunt message from someone who knows exactly how professional sports really operate. Former Major League Baseball executive David Sampson didn't sugarcoat it. His advice to WNBA players was simple and harsh. Take the deal. Sampson, who previously served as president of the Miami Marlins, made it clear that any new CBA agreement is only going to happen if ownership feels protected. If the structure isn't heavily tilted in the owner's favor, in his view, it doesn't get done. That's not posturing. That's not strategy. That's how these leagues function, period. According to Sampson, this isn't about ideal outcomes or emotional momentum, it's about leverage. And right now, he's signaling that the leverage may not be where players think it is. He framed it as a business reality check. And if the players push too far and reject an ownership-friendly proposal, the likely result isn't a breakthrough victory. It's a work stoppage, a strike, games missed, paychecks lost. And when that happens, the financial pressure doesn't hit owners the same way it hits players. The longer a standoff drags on, the more strain builds on the athletes. Eventually, that pressure can force a return to negotiations, but under worse conditions than before. That's the warning. Compromise now or risk losing ground later. It's a cold assessment, but it's coming from someone who has spent decades inside the business side of professional sports, where sentiment rarely outweighs numbers.
Mainstream media, your Stephen A. Smiths, your Colin Cowherds, First Take, Jason Whitlock, First Things First with Nick Wright. As far as shows like that are concerned, they haven't uttered a single syllable about the WNBA and what's going on with CBA negotiations. Almost as if they just don't care. Almost as if the air is completely let out of the balloon. Now, I know Nick Wright yesterday talked about the most popular basketball stars currently going on, and Caitlin Clark's name got brought up, but that was Caitlin Clark's name, nothing about the WNBA.
Sampson didn't hold back. He painted a stark picture. Owners believe the excitement surrounding the league has already peaked. In their eyes, the air is out of the balloon. Meanwhile, many players, he argues, are living in a bubble, clinging to an idealized version of the game, imagining constant growth, endless attention, and limitless opportunity. But that vision, he warns, is outdated. The business reality has shifted, sharply and permanently. From the owner's perspective, the league is fragile, revenue streams are uneven, markets are small, and the focus has narrowed to a single superstar versus the rest of the roster. That contrast isn't just noticeable, it's defining the negotiation landscape. This gap between what players hope for and what owners believe is possible is at the heart of the deadlock. It's why discussions feel impossible, why compromise seems distant, and why the stakes have never felt higher.
Not too much to lose if there's no WNBA season. The conversations that a league like, if the NFL was months away from a lockout and the season was about to start, you think ESPN would be quiet about an NFL lockout? Not one bit. Let's get right into it. Please like the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. We have a former Major League Baseball executive sending out a warning to the WNBA players. The league's not going to take this.
The divide between Caitlin Clark and everyone else isn't just noticeable, it's the lens through which owners are viewing the entire league. Sampson didn't mince words. Clark is the WNBA's one-woman stimulus package, a generational talent whose impact comes along maybe once in a lifetime. He made it clear that in 30 years of WNBA history, the league has never seen a player with this kind of singular influence. That makes the current moment extraordinary and fragile. It's an opportunity the owners know is too valuable to waste. Any delay, any disruption, any lockout that keeps Clark off the court, even for part of a season, could erase the very boost that has propelled the league into unprecedented attention and growth. In other words, this isn't business as usual. This is once-in-a-generation leverage, and the clock is ticking.
To the WNBA players, the league's not going to take this. If there is a deal that is proposed that does not favor the league, that does not benefit the league is not going to take this. The owners need to, the players need to understand that. The players need to realize that. The owners aren't going to take this deal. Let's see what David Sampson has to say. Former executive warns WNBA deal only happens on owners' terms. Uh-oh. Former executive warned
the Players Union has put forward a series of demands, bold, ambitious, but still falling short of what owners consider realistic. Early reports suggested the union initially aimed for 40 to 50% of gross revenue, an eye-popping figure that many in the business world dismissed as unrealistic. While these numbers were never officially confirmed, they served as a signal of a starting position far removed from what ownership could accept. Over time, the union scaled back its demands. The proposals dropped to 31% and then to an average of about 27.5% of gross revenue, beginning at 25% in the first year. They also suggested a salary cap under $9.5 million, reduced from a previous $10.5 million target. Still significantly higher than what the owners believe is financially sustainable. The message is clear. While the union is negotiating, the gap between aspiration and reality remains substantial, setting the stage for a high-stakes showdown.
Please take this message seriously, he explained during the Nothing Personal with David Sampson podcast. Talked about this podcast over at the venue earlier today. He also mentioned in this podcast that if you're the players and you're the owners, well, the owners see that the air is falling out of the balloon. Falling out of the balloon, you guys understand. The owners see that a lot of the excitement around the league has dwindled. The owners see that. The players are stuck in their own little balloon, their own little bubble. They think it's all roses and daisies outside still. The owners see a different picture. they see the Caitlin Clark.
Even with the union's concessions, the owner's financial outlook remains dire. According to their projections, the latest player proposal could result in roughly $460 million in cumulative losses over the life of the agreement. That staggering number explains why a deal has yet to be reached. For ownership, this isn't just a matter of negotiation strategy or leverage. It's about the very survival of their franchises. Agreeing to terms that guarantee such massive ongoing losses is simply not an option. The result is a yawning gap between what players hope for and what the league can realistically sustain, and it's this economic reality that sits at the heart of the ongoing deadlock.
In other words, the players are clueless. They want something that they're not entitled to. Still, the latest counter proposal from the Players Union reflects movement. The Players Association lowered its revenue sharing request to an average of roughly 27.5% of gross league revenue, beginning at 25% in year one, alongside a proposed salary cap below $9.5 million. That marks a significant step down from the union's earlier ask of 31% gross with a $10.5 million cap. Now I'm going to say this because I did hear about Wnba and the 50% and the 40%. Let's just have two separate thoughts. Let's say what Wnba is saying is true. Well, going from
and a major flashpoint in these negotiations comes down to how revenue is defined. Players are pushing for one-time windfalls like expansion fees, relocation fees, and initial broadcast signing bonuses to be counted as part of ongoing recurring revenue. David Sampson didn't hold back in his critique. He argued forcefully that these non-recurring payments cannot be considered in the long-term sustainability of a business. Counting them as regular operating income, he warned, would create a dangerously misleading picture of the league's finances. His message was blunt. The more the players insist on including these one-off gains in revenue calculations, the less likely it becomes that a deal will ever be reached. At its core, this clash over financial definitions is paralyzing the negotiation process, all leaving both sides stuck in a standoff that threatens the entire season.
40%, it's the first time I've seen it. And I like to say I've been following this pretty closely, wouldn't you say? We've all been following this pretty closely. Shout out to everybody who comes and supports the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, I appreciate it all. Have we heard 50% from the players? Have we heard 40% from the players? So is Wnba just making up numbers that weren't reported? Oh, suddenly Annie Costable, oh, she missed that one update. Oh, Alexa Philippou, she missed that one update. Oh, the convenient update that makes the players look like they came down 10 to 20%, depending on what number you listen to. We just happened to miss that update.
A key sticking point in these negotiations is how far the players' union is willing to push, and how far owners are willing to budge. Even after concessions, the union's proposals are seen as astronomical by experienced executives. The lowered 27.5% revenue sharing request, still considered far beyond what owners deem reasonable. Industry insiders suggest a realistic compromise might require players to drop below 20%, maybe even 17%, just to align with sustainable business models. Minor tweaks aren't enough. A major recalibration of expectations is needed to close the gap and prevent the league from spiraling into financial chaos. And make no mistake, the potential upside for players is enormous if a deal is struck. Under the league's proposed structure, the 2026 salary cap could soar to roughly $5.65 million, a monumental leap from just $1.5 million in 2025. Maximum total compensation, factoring in revenue sharing, could hit $1.3 million in 2026 and approach $2 million by 2031. Compare that to the 2025 Supermax of $249,000 and average rookie salaries around $120,000. The money on the table is life-changing, but only for those willing to compromise. Another flashpoint is the players' demand for guaranteed housing. On the surface, it seems reasonable, but for owners already projecting massive losses, this is yet another financial burden stacked atop an already strained budget. Every extra demand, no matter how fair it seems to players, amplifies the divide. The clock isn't just ticking, it's pressing hard. With the season fast approaching, compromise becomes inevitable. As David Sampson warned, owners are unlikely to shift meaningfully from their positions. Historical precedent precedent shows that player strikes almost always end on owners' terms, and the longer the standoff continues, the closer the league inches toward a lockout, and the stakes couldn't be higher. A failed agreement risks derailing an entire season and squandering the unprecedented momentum generated by Caitlin Clark. Yet, strangely, major media remain silent. ESPN, Disney, and ABC, networks with billions at stake, are barely covering the looming CBA crisis. Clark's rise is acknowledged, but always in isolation, never connected to the league's existential threats. This highlights a harsh reality. The WNBA is being treated as secondary, and her individual stardom isn't translating into systemic support for the league's survival. Sampson has been blunt. The players often misunderstand the business realities of NBA-owned WNBA teams. Insisting that one-time fees count as ongoing revenue demonstrates a disconnect between player expectations and financial viability. Owners view these demands as emotional or entitled, rather than grounded in business sense. Contrast this with other leagues. If the NFL were months away from a lockout, some ESPN would be non-stop coverage. Disney, ABC, NBC, all pushing content. Billions are on the line, but the WNBA? Silence. The network's indifference underscores a damning truth. The league's perceived value is still marginal, no matter Caitlin Clark's superstar status. From the owner's perspective, much of the excitement has already plateaued. Clark generates enormous buzz, but it cannot compensate for fundamentally unsustainable financial demands. They see this negotiation not as a chance to ride a popularity wave, but as an opportunity to reset the league's economic foundation on sustainable terms. Lose this moment with Caitlin Clark, and the WNBA risks losing more than games. It risks throwing away a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The league has never commanded this level of attention or new viewership. A lockout, a failed deal, or even a partial absence could erase the momentum overnight. The ultimatum is clear: take the deal or risk losing everything. The financial chasm remains enormous, but the alternative, squandering the league's brightest star and its best chance to grow, is far worse. The league's blueprint for 2026 sets the salary cap at roughly $5.65 million. The players, however, are pushing for a cap closer to $9.5 million. That nearly $4 million gap in a single season, compounded over the duration of the agreement, translates into tens of millions in projected losses for owners. This isn't a minor point to haggle over. It's a fundamental disagreement about the league's economic ceiling and how much revenue can safely be shared while keeping franchises viable. Closing this divide will require compromise at a scale the union has yet to demonstrate. Small adjustments, moving revenue sharing from 27.5% down to 26% or 25%, barely make a dent for owners facing massive projected deficits. The message from seasoned executives like David Sampson and Mark Cuban is unanimous. Players must drastically reset their financial expectations and adopt a business-minded approach. Otherwise, there will be no deal. This isn't just about games on the court. If the players, their association, and superstars like Caitlin Clark hope to leverage this unprecedented moment, they must recognize the stakes. The owners, armed with cold, hard financial projections and largely ignored by mainstream media, aren't bluffing. They will not sign off on an agreement that guarantees ongoing losses. The opportunity created by Caitlin Clark's rise is real, but it's closing fast. The league's future, its growth trajectory, and even the career earnings of every player are balanced on a knife's edge. The WNBA now faces an existential choice: take a deal owners can accept or risk losing everything. The silence from networks, the blunt warnings from executives, and the massive financial disparities all point to the same conclusion. Caitlin Clark has illuminated the league's potential, but without serious compromise, that light will fade. This isn't merely a negotiation, it's a fight for the survival of the WNBA, where hesitation could squander its best chance at building a truly prosperous future.